we've got some catching up to do. Right, so apologies, this project kind of went on the back burner for like 3 months, I think. Basically, I was trying to get parts, trying to get them sponsored. They didn't bite, and then there was some sort of confusion. I thought they wanted to sponsor, and then they didn't. So while that was all going on, I started other projects like the magazine rack and the Okey Pokeys, which I've got over here. I got quite distracted and prioritised other things for the time being. But I'm ready to get started with it now. And while all of this has been going on, I've been working on the design, sussing out a few more problems, and I think we are almost ready to start making it. So hopefully this is going to be the last designing episode. I'll talk you through everything that I've been doing, the decisions that have been made, what materials and stuff I'm going to be using. And yeah, do you know what? I'm not even going to try and present this. Let's just have a walk around, shall we? So I have remade another template, which is a better body size for the base. So the other one was a little bit too big, and I say it was a little bit too big, it was way too big. So this is the actual size that I'm going to be using now, and this was kind of scaled off of my previous base. As you can see, same sort of body shape going on. It's based off a wall base, which I really like the design, but I've just added a little bit more of a sweep on the bottom here and tweaked the lower horn there. But overall, pretty much the same design, but obviously we're going to have fanned frets on this, hence why we have an angle there. Now, as for the body, the last episode I obviously hit a problem, as you probably just saw now, where when you put the body on there, this top horn, there is not enough material there, and that is with the template right at the bottom here. So this is obviously a little bit of a problem, but thank you to all of your suggestions. I've worked out how I'm going to fix it now, and it works with some funky book matching. So what I'm going to do, because we have sort of excess material here where the Buckeye burr is underneath the template, if I cut that off, flip it round the other way and go up there, it's going to essentially book match another bit of material up there, similar to how we've book matched this, but it's just going to be like a three-way thing, and that will allow me to cover that material there. So that's a lucky fix, because I thought I'd have to buy an entirely new top, and considering the main reason I'm actually doing this project is because I had this top laying around, that would be a bit annoying if I had to replace that anyway. And obviously the other decision thing that I hadn't worked out in the previous episode was the orientation of this Buckeye top as well. So I'm just going to pop this back on the tripod again, I think, because it's a little bit difficult to get this sorted. Right, so orientations. See, this is the way that the wood supplier intended for it to go, and you know, it looks pretty good. We've got some of this nice bark inclusions here, a few bits there, and it cuts out these knots. But in the previous episode I said I quite wanted to do it this way because it includes more of this gnarly grain and stuff in the middle. But the issue is, if I put that there and maximise the material by placing the template at the bottom of the Buckeye here, because if I go too high up, I don't have enough material here to replace on the horn at the top and do the book match that I explained earlier. So by having this right at the bottom there, you can see that the knots, they're kind of interfering with the neck at quite a dodgy place. This one's not too bad because I could kind of make that a sound hole, but this one here, that would be a problem because as you slide your hand up the neck to hit the higher frets up here, that's not going to be too comfortable if you slide up too quick and you whack your finger on one of these corners. So what I'd have to do is slide it up ever so slightly, and if I take it up to here, I have about 10mm of material between that knot and where the body shape ends, and that still just about gives me enough material to book match from here up into this top horn. The issue with that then is that this knot is then going to be interfering with the pickups because it's too far down, and this is exactly why I was waiting for parts, because if I started making the guitar and then found this out later, that would be a little bit of a problem. So the pickups I'm going to be using are EMGs, and you can see I could move them down here, but then when I get both of them on, they're going to be far too close to the bridge, which is only going to be around here. So I need to get 2 of these soap bars on. Ideally, I want it to be about 40mm, and as you can see, it is overhanging in one of the knots. So then I got thinking, right, what if I do some sort of funky book match like this? Wait, was it like that? No, hang on. Like that? Yes, that was it. So I have the inclusions like this, and then that goes on like that. And this would kind of work. Let me just see if I can get this lined up. So you can see that the bark inclusion is now down here. That could interfere with some of the electronics and stuff that are going to be down here, but I could probably work around that. This one here, again, wouldn't be too bad, and there's a little knot, which you might not be able to see from that angle. That literally sits on the top of this lower horn here, which looks quite good. The only thing I don't like about this is the book match isn't quite as, I don't know, it doesn't look quite right to me. Well, obviously it isn't right because it's not the intended way it's meant to book match, but we've got this bark inclusion here, which carries across quite well, but then this lighter material here, I don't like how that hits the darker material, and then that's going to be even more prominent once we finish it. Same problem with here, lighter material is hitting the darker material. I could... Actually, could I cut... I wonder if I could just cut a crack into it or something like that. Because I wanted to obviously have this... Oh, do you know what? I thought I had this all worked out, and I'm just coming up with new ideas now. Because similarly, I could cut into that and create a cut up here. That might interfere with the bridge, possibly. I need to put more thought into that. I can actually think of that when it actually comes to making the body, because right now we need to be focusing on the neck because that's the bit we're going to be making first. But I thought I'd talk you through this anyway. But up until filming this video, this is the orientation that I was going for, which is the one that the manufacturer intended, and it'll work just fine. So if all else fails, at least I have one method that's going to work. So one thing I also did was knock together a model of the base as well. So this is the body shape that I have the negative of here, and I've made a positive of it with two pickups screwed in place, which are the exact same size as the pickups I'm using. The neck is all exactly to scale, and I've marked out the fret locations as well to make sure that I actually know what I'm doing when it comes to marking it out. And the headstock is quite oversized at the moment. It's actually going to be chopped like, well, that far down, so it's not going to be as long as this. But the body feels great. It feels like it's the right size. It's going to take a bit of getting used to the 6-string neck, I tell you, because it is proper wide. Like, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. I remember jumping from a 4-string to a 5-string and thinking that that was wide, but this is a whole new I have no idea how people play those like 11-string basses, because your hand's like flat on the front like this. That's almost twice as many strings as I have here. Either they have gorilla hat. Anyway, I'm being sidetracked. So yeah, I know the body's good. I know the neck's good. The other thing I need to talk you through is material. Now, for the material on the base, what I originally planned to do was make it out of, or make the neck out of ash, because I thought I had some of it laying around left over from my workbench. And then when I came into the workshop, I realized I didn't have that ash anymore because I chopped it up for the Okey Pokeys. Sorry, not for the Okey Pokeys, for the testers of the Okey Pokeys. So yeah, I had these massive long lengths, cut them all down, and I don't have that anymore, which is annoying because it would have been perfect neck material. Ash is quite an open grain wood, and I don't think it's something that you generally use on necks, as far as I could see anyway. Generally, you'd use a closer grain material like, well, maple, for example. That's pretty much what you find on all guitar necks. But this ash, the grain was very dense and it was very hard and very heavy, so I thought that would make a very good neck. But it's not here, so that doesn't matter. I'm going to have to go to a sawmill and source some new material for that. As for the body, again, I thought I had enough material for it because I remember buying this bit of Ovankol from Yandles a few years ago, I think. And again, I thought I had more of it than I actually did, and this is only actually enough for half a body. And it's also started getting splits and stuff down the front, so that bit was unusable. So I went to Surrey Timbers this time and picked up this big old slab of Ovankol. Obviously in the last video, I think I said I was looking at using elm, but for starters, they didn't have any elm in the sawmill. And even though I said I didn't like the look of darker material in the render, kind of picturing it in my head, I think it might look all right. So I'm just going to go for Ovankol. I think you use it on guitars quite a lot. It's a heavy material, but I don't really mind because I generally play the bass sitting down. I don't do gigs anymore. And also this bit of material had, like, there's a little bit of figuring in it as well, which is quite nice. So I'm going to try and expose that figuring where the, what am I doing with this? Where the guitar body, like, sort of is rounded off at the top here. I'm going to try and do that on the area where there's lots of figuring because it should hopefully make it a little bit more prominent, especially when there's a finish on it. So the body is going to be made of Ovankol. The neck, because I don't have the ash here anymore, I'm going to go to the sawmill and pick up some maple because I know it's a safe bet. And I want to do a little middle laminate of a contrasting material. So I have a bit of walnut left over here, which was from the end cap of my workbench. It's going to be a bit of a shame cutting that up. I'm going to see if I can buy any thinner sections from the sawmill, but it looks like I'm probably going to have to use that. So yeah, the neck is going to be a sandwich of maple, walnut, maple, and then I'm going to put some lines of veneer down that as well. So for the veneer side of things, behind my workbench, I have a box of long veneers, which I haven't opened up in ages actually. So I have got some lace wood in here, which, oh hello, which would work quite nicely. I mean, you're only actually going to see the edge of it, so it would be a shame to use up something this nice and essentially just glue that face against two other materials. But it might be quite cool having like a bright orange line between them, and it will sort of match with the brass or copper hardware. And I've had this bit of veneer for years. It was just an impulse buy from eBay, and I have no idea if I'm actually going to be using it again at some point in the future, especially not over this length, because I'm never going to have a veneer press this big. So that is option number one. And option number two is this curly eucalyptus I have here. And this looks rather... Oh, I've got another bit in there. I don't remember buying that. Okay, well, I've got 3 bits of veneer to choose from. So this is curly eucalyptus. Again, nice and figured. Well, it's actually quilted, I think. Looks really nice. Up here, it is very, very figured. But down the bottom here, there isn't quite as much, so I could cut it off this bottom bit and just use that for the guitar. And then... what's this other bit I've got here? Oh, I forgot I bought this. Curly walnut. I mean, it's quite pale, but oh, very nice. I bought this ages ago. And there's 2 leaves of it as well. Oh, maybe I'll use that for a future project. But, okay, let's put that aside. So the choice is between curly eucalyptus or the lace wood. I think I'll probably just end up using the lace wood, to be honest. I mean, this is about 3 meters of it, and I only need half that for the guitar. So I have enough of it left over if I do need it for a future project. And I don't think it was too expensive as well. I think I got it for a little bit of a bargain. So yeah, probably going to end up using that. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with it now. I just need to go and get material for the neck and suss out what I want to do with the top of this body now that that new orientation has exposed itself. In fact, let's do that now, because then you can see how I've sort of been laying these things out to check that they actually work. So for this body, let's just see if this orientation can work or not, because yeah, obviously I didn't like the way that that matched up with the lighter material, but I wasn't even aware of this orientation, and it's just exposed itself while on camera. Well, that was a weird sentence. So things to work out here. Can I create an artificial split up here that kind of hides that dodgy bit of grain match here? And can I do the same at the bottom of the neck here? And this could be a sound hole. How would that Right, let's get the hardware. So according to my drawings, these pickups are 46 millimeters down from the bottom of the bridge, which is around there. Look at that. It's just, oh, I love foam fitted things. Just makes everything so much nicer. The great thing about these pickups as well is that they are solderless as well. All of the electronics inside, you just have to click them together, which is great because my soldering is the shoddiest thing you will ever see. I haven't actually got a distance written between these pickups, so it looks about 30 mil. Probably something like that. So the good thing about laying it out like this is that I can also see what dimensions I'm missing. So I need to just do that on here as well. And the distance to the bridge is 41 millimeters on from that, which is going to be around there. So that is where these little bridge pins are going to be going. They'll go that way. Oh, it's just going to hit that knot, I think. This Buckeye top is the most annoying thing that I have ever come across in my 5 years of woodworking, because every orientation that I go for, it's just the slightest bit off. Like if these knots were in like 10 millimeters in either direction, it would work perfectly, but nothing is going to plan. So these will be, let's say 40 mil. Actually, that's the saddle of them there. So if I brought that saddle all the way back, that means that I could effectively shift these up a little bit. Ooh, now that might provide clearance. Right, what do we need? I bet it's a Phillips. Oh, bloody Phillips. Bloody 8 Phillips heads. I always end up destroying them. So by doing this, I am bringing the saddle backwards on here, because the line on where the bridge is on here is where the string needs to start effectively. So if I bring that saddle back, it means that I can shift the actual body of it forwards, and the starting point of the string would still be in line with where it needs to be. So let's see, this would be back 40 mil, did I say 40 mil? Yeah, 40-ish mil. Is that a bit too close? These are all shifting on me. Pickups are obviously magnetic, so they're sticking to my ruler and moving. I reckon I could just about avoid that knot, which would be amazing. That's also covering up the dodgy bit of material that I didn't like the match of there. Up here it's still exposed, but then if I did that split, that could work. Do you know what? I think I might have found the orientation, because also I need to shift this up a little bit to include that in. If it moves up a tiny bit, that means that all of these pickups and things can move up as well. Oh, I think this might be it. I think I might have done it. So now it's exposed a little bit more of that match there, and there's obviously half a knot here, but then if I just cut that so it's a big split in the body, that could work. Maybe just split it all the way up here, and then maybe one of the bars going through there. So it literally looks like the body is separating in two. So let's see, on these plans, I just need to write down that I want to add a split at the top of the neck, and that will be going as close as I dare to that pickups. Brilliant, right. So let's just get this laid out roughly how it was meant to go. I'm going to take a picture of it, and then I have my dimensions on this bit of paper, and I have a physical picture of it as well. Where's my phone? There. And then I kind of know what I'm working with when I go back to the computer. Happy days. So you can see now why it was so important for me to get this hardware before taking the design any further, because it allows you to actually see what you're working with. If I was to take these dimensions straight from the website, I wouldn't have been able to work out any of this. Sometimes you need to actually be able to lay it out physically, see what sort of adjustments you have, see what kind of wiggle room you've got, and then work it out from there, and this is the case. So now I've got all this information. Let's go back to the computer, draw it up, work out what other splits and things I'm going to be putting in it, because I'm going to need that information when it comes to cutting out the body. And yeah, I think that's all we need to do. Let's go. Right, so I'm now back home, and I have double checked all of the measurements on my CAD software, and it fits. I've got it all laid out on the floor down here, and yeah, you can see the final layout of it. So as predicted, I was able to shift these bridge pins up and down enough in order to fit that in the area here without interfering with the knot, and maintain the scale length of the entire guitar once I get the neck attached. So that's good. And also I was able to shift this book matched part like up and down a little bit, because I'm not getting a perfect book match between these two now. So obviously I have a little bit of wiggle room between the two components, but I was able to shift it up and down to include that knot and get it spot on between the neck and the top pickup there. So that could potentially be a sound hole. The only issue is, because I'm doing a through neck construction, when I build the neck, it's going to obviously come down here and it's going to go straight through the body all the way through, and then this top is going to sit on top of that. Because that hole is kind of crossing over onto the neck, it means that I'm going to have to cut a little section out of the through neck once I get it all glued together, so that there isn't like a flat spot at the bottom of that hole. You'll see when it comes to it, but overall, yes, it fits. And I've got that little knot in there as well. I'm considering putting a little sound hole in there as well, because I don't know, there's a hole there. It would seem rude not to, really, wouldn't it? But yeah, it fits. So now I can just work out all the splits and stuff that I'm going to put in it, because obviously I'm able to work around all the hardware and things like that now. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the knobs home that you can adjust the volume and stuff of all the pickups, so it would have been nice if I had those so I could work around those, but I could just get the diameter of those and draw them on the CAD software here, and that'll be enough. So yeah, I'll probably just do a time lapse of me messing around with drawing, and we'll see what happens. So I've come to the conclusion that less is more. Now, obviously at the beginning of this series, I had the intention of like really cutting up the body and putting copper pipes in it everywhere and just making that a really big feature. But looking at the top now on the floor and the way that I've laid it out, the top actually looks really gnarly as it is, because I've managed to include both of those sort of big holes in there. We've got the really wild grain and stuff in the middle. Like, I'm thinking, if I like excessively cut into that too much and start putting copper bars everywhere, it's going to be way over the top. And this tends to be the story of how I design things. I like massively overcomplicate it and then I start refining things back. It's not something I do consciously, it just happens. And I mean, look at what I've got here. So this first one, obviously I've got the split at the top here, which is going to hide that dodgy join between the two book match parts, and a split there as well to hide the join as well. One of the holes here, which I'm going to put copper bars through, that might be cut straight through the body, not entirely sure. There's a little bit of short grain here, so I'll have to think about that. But then there was this big one here. Now, this is a natural hole, this is a natural hole, this is a natural hole. I think, but you know, if I cut into it, that's just going to look so obvious that I've just gone ahead and cut it. I don't know, it's just not going to blend in and it's just going to add too much noise to the overall thing, I think. So then I moved to this one, still including the top and bottom one, but then I joined that cut up with the hole here and created some sort of massive thing here. It looks alright until you remove the body at the bottom here and create this empty space. And then you start seeing the actual shape of the guitar, as I did here actually. So you see I decided to take a chop out of there, but then once I remove that corner, that is what the upper horn looks like. I don't know, it looks like the Loch Ness Monster. It's just a bit too much, and again the cut up here, just couldn't get it to blend in. This one here, I quite like. Now on my previous bass, I had a little notch cut out the top of it, which pretty much is similar to this, a little bit smaller, but I really like it. It just makes it look a little bit more natural instead of just taking these massive chunks of stuff. Just a little bit out there. It's subtle and I think it blends in. So then I've moved on to this one here. Now I still might add that little one there, not entirely sure, as I did in the previous one up here. But this one, I decided that, you know, does that top split actually need to stop at the top pickup? I mean, the back of the pickups don't actually look that bad. They're like this sort of glossy black colour, but for starters you're never going to see it because it's going to be against my body, and I could maybe cover it up some way anyway, but having that split going right underneath that pickup and then nesting around it, the finished look will almost look like a you know, like those inlaid butterflies or bow ties that you do. I mean, here's a few that I inlaid in a walnut desk project I did a couple of years ago, but there's nothing saying that that can't just bridge across the gap, providing the electronics don't interfere too much, but I'm sure I could work around that. But I really like the look of that. It doesn't look like much when it's all in black and white like this, well, with a little bit of orange as well. But I think once you add the top of it on and everything, and all the pickups and all the bridge and all these other knots and swirly grain on here, that's going to look pretty cool. In fact, I'm going to render it on SketchUp and see what it looks like, which means I need to take another picture of the orientation that I've got here, upload it onto SketchUp, colour correct it, pretty much everything I did in the first episode. So I won't bore you with that. I will just show you when we are there. So it's now the next day, and I have decided that, I know originally I said that less is more, but I've decided now that more is good, I suppose. So yeah, I tried the design with just the split underneath the neck and just the split underneath the bridge as well, but it just didn't look quite right. There, again, it just looked too artificial, just two random splits and then the rest of the body just sort of being, I don't know, all solid. The theme didn't carry across too well. So this is the design that we are going for, so I'm going to talk you through it. So what we have got here is obviously more splits in it, as I originally wanted to do. So we've got the one going underneath the pickup here, which is going to be interesting to produce, because on the back end of it I need to make sure I cover up the back of that pickup and just cover up some of the plasticky-ness of that pickup. And obviously we've got metal bars in there as well, and then we've got the split at the back here as well. And you'll notice that in these splits it's a little bit black, and that is because I want to experiment with scorching, which is something that I did on a previous piece of furniture. Gives a really cool, like, I don't know, the texture is just really nice. I did it on oak, so it's quite an open grain material, and I'm not entirely sure how Ovencoal is going to respond to it. Even the Buckeye, actually, if I end up going up that high. But yeah, not entirely sure how it's going to respond. I'll do a few testers first. If not, I'll just dye it or something like that. But I think a scorched look would be really cool in these splits. And then we'll install these metal bars. Now this bottom knot here is going to be cut straight through and follow the circumference, the perimeter of that knot, so it gives it a nice natural hole. Then we've got the signature split at the bottom here, and then we've got this massive one at the top here. And this was kind of inspired by, there's an Ibanez guitar out there, I think it's Ibanez, and it's got a handle cut out of this area here, so you can hold it there when you're carrying it around instead of like upright or around the neck or something like that. Just a little handle cut out of there, makes it nice and easy to transport. And I thought, if I get that close enough to the top, this base is going to be heavy, that would be pretty handy to have there. I couldn't get it quite as close to the top as I wanted, and also I have this void here which could prevent that from going any higher, but I don't know, if my hand's big enough, I might be able to stretch that and use it as a handle. But I think that looks pretty sweet up there, just seeing straight through the body. And then we've obviously got this knot here, which is going to be a sound hole, so which means that this entire area here, I'm going to hollow out as much as possible. Also, I had the little circular knot here as well, which I didn't manage to line up on this render, but there was a little circle there. And I'll try and make this section hollow as well. And the reason for this is because it takes a little bit of weight off the front end of the guitar as well, and is going to make it not as top heavy. Now this upper horn is kind of above the 12th fret anyway, so it should stop the headstock from diving down, but you know, having less weight in this upper area there will also help that as well. The only thing I need to make sure I do is make sure I don't do, is shape the body and accidentally expose that hollow area there, so need to think of a way of preventing that from happening. But yeah, overall, that is what I'm going to go for. Not entirely sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm sure we'll work that out when it comes to it. Oh, so there we go, guys. The bass guitar is pretty much ready to go, so I'm just going to go to the sawmill this week, grab some of the neck material because I thought I had some in the workshop, but I actually didn't. So I'm going to go and grab that this week, and then we will get started with making it. At last, I'm actually proper excited to do this. I haven't been as excited to make something as I have, like, since making the workbench, I think, which is almost a year ago, actually. So God knows what IS tutorials in it. They're fun to put out, but it's not particularly challenging. This is going to be challenging. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.